Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Express. I'm Neena Gopal. This is the New Indian Express's weekly interaction with experts, where we analyze the impact of developments in our backyard, on our neighborhood, on India. Do click on the New Indian Express website and tweet and follow Global Express. So, Gaza is a seething mass of misery and grief. The retribution unleashed by Israel was precipitated by the brutal attack that was unleashed by Hamas on the Israeli settlements on October 7th. But as the world rallies to Israel, Washington and London and India empathizing with its unspeakable agony, there are huge concerns over the humanitarian disaster that is unfolding among Palestinians trapped in Gaza. Over 3,700 people are already dead. The US has announced now that it's going to that Israel will allow humanitarian aid to come through the Rafah crossing. But is there the risk now of a wider conflict? I mean, Hamas upped the ante in such a way that raises questions about where they get their ammunition from, where they get their funding from, and with the today's incident of Israel, of these an attack even coming from Yemen, there's a great possibility that there could be a wider conflict that Iran could get involved. Talking us through this today will be former ambassador to South Africa, Israeli ambassador to South Africa, Lesotho, and Swaziland, Ambassador Arthur Lenk. In articles written earlier this year, he'd warned the Netanyahu government of the potential that its right-wing elements had to wreck the Abraham Accords. So welcome, Ambassador Lenk. We look forward to an interesting session talking to you. Could you tell us whether the stated goal of the Benjamin Netanyahu government, which is the elimination of Hamas, is a feasible proposition? I mean, the ground offensive, the war that they're talking about, comes fraught with its own challenges. I mean, you could get bogged down in an area that is unfamiliar territory. And the anger and the frustration of the ordinary Palestinian, not necessarily a pro-Hamas, after the Baptist hospital attack. I mean, is this wise? Or is it necessary?
Well, let's start from 2 weeks ago. We in Israel are still burying our dead. We're still trying to figure out who's missing. We're trying to identify who's being held hostage. Well over 200 people are being held hostage. If it was India, comparing our populations, which is a crazy thing to do because you're the most populous country in the world, it would be 28,000 people held hostage and nearly 200,000 people killed.
Wow.
Right? Can you imagine how India would respond to such a disaster, such a massacre? And it wasn't a military front. It was terrorists who snuck across the border on a holiday and went and just started shooting people at a music festival. Children, and they killed children in front of their parents in their home, parents in front of their children in their home. They didn't just
and old people.
Old people, killing them, taking them hostage, in every travesty that one can imagine, and things that we can't imagine. And only because, I don't know, I've passed a certain age, I'm not putting up pictures to show you, because they're awful and perhaps they should be seen.
Yeah, no, I've seen the pictures.
And so the challenge for Israel right now is certainly not retribution. You used the word retribution at the beginning, and I don't think that's the right word. It's making us safe. And the truth is also making Palestinians safe. And the only way, again, a number, 50,000 Israelis who lived along the border don't have homes anymore.
That's right.
Right? So a little country like Israel has 50,000 IDPs, again, playing the numbers game. If it was India, it's 7 million people are homeless and will be homeless for a long time. And little tiny Israel, smaller population than Mumbai, has to deal with all of those things all at the same time and create a situation where someday in the future, we and our Palestinian neighbors can talk about being neighbors. And as
yeah, I
long
mean,
as
that of course is the should
that's
be
real,
the ultimate.
that's right. And we're not there today, and maybe not next year, and maybe not the year after that. But that's the direction that we have to go in, and that's the responsibility of the Israeli government to find a reality where that possibility could even be a part of a conversation. And so, again, you mentioned the hospital in Gaza City.
Yeah.
That people may be angry, but the people to be angry at are not us. It's been clear that it was not Israel that hit the hospital. It's clear that it isn't 500 people dead. It's a tragedy. It's a great tragedy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact is they've managed to make the narrative sound. Both sides have their own versions, and Israel of course has given evidence to show that that crater, that small thing, is not a crater really. It was a fireball from the head of the rocket that fell there.
But it was how horrific is that? That Palestinians were aiming to kill Israeli civilians.
Yeah,
and the same rocket, they killed Palestinian civilians. And if Palestinian lives matter, why is nobody covering that hospital story anymore? Because it wasn't Israel. As if it was Palestinians killed Palestinians, it isn't a story anymore. And that's tragic. It's tragic.
But Master, where do we go from here? I mean, the point is, let's put this October 7th. I mean, the fact is that day 13, day 14, it looms. What can we expect? I mean, you said to make Israel safe. What is it that we are going to do, that you are going to do to make Israel safe? I mean, the fact is that the Hamas managed to get under, the radar of the Israelis.
Well, that Israel made mistakes, and we'll have to reckon with those mistakes is a different conversation, and perhaps for a different day. Although, if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to.
No. I'm also curious about what I heard from the Hamas leader press conferences in Lebanon. Where they've said that it was the trigger for this kibbutzim attack were the attacks in the West Bank that were taking place by settlers. I mean, this is their press conference, which I'm quoting to you. And the fact that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government's ministers desecrated Al-Aqsa. So you've called out Mr. Netanyahu earlier this year in a very nice, good article where you've said that, that they should watch how far they go in the West Bank. I mean, you don't want to have a wider battle, a third front opening up in the West Bank either.
No, we didn't want any front to come. But you can make up whatever excuse you want to make. But the largest massacre since the founding of the State of Israel happened, and it wasn't a military conflict. It wasn't. The conversation might have been different. We would have been angry if they had gone to the military base along the border and had a conflict with soldiers.
The fact
but
that
once you go to a music festival, and once you go to elderly, and here a friend of mine who I was with on just Independence Day a few months ago, named Vivian Silver, a grandmother.
Yes, I heard about her.
She's a famous peace activist.
Absolutely.
Who was one of the founders of an organization called Women Wage Peace. Vivian, didn't matter that Vivian wanted to wage peace. Hamas didn't care. She's now in Gaza, and I hope we see her again one day.
I hope you do.
But no, it's not time to put aside what happened on October 7th. Nobody would have told the Americans 2 weeks after 9/11, okay, it happened, it's a shame, but let's move on. Ceasefire, all sides, let's move on. No, and this is 10 times as great.
Yeah.
And
so there's no question.
And so I think that's why the vast majority.
No,
and I think that's why the vast majority of the international community, the leadership in India, the leadership in the United States, leadership in all over Europe, are understanding that if it was them, they would be reacting the way Israel is and would have no choice but to create a new reality to make their people safe. Because if we did anything short of that, the message we send to Hamas and to Hezbollah and to Iran is come do it again. Come do it again.
Yeah, that's true. Ambassador Lenk, the Hamas have also taken hostages in this attack. What happens to them? I mean, are they a bargaining chip in return for what? One of the Hamas spokesperson said there were Palestinian prisoners in US jails. Is that all that Hamas wants, or is that the deal that they're looking for? I mean, it doesn't sound realistic. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's hard to imagine how there's negotiation. They want us gone. That's the position of Hamas. It's not the position of all Palestinians, I think. But I think it's certainly the position of Hamas that they would like all the Jews to be in the sea. And they would like all the Palestinians, women to have their heads covered, and all of people who are gay to be gone. And they are not leftist, liberal people. They are fascist. And people have been using the imagery of ISIS. And the threat of ISIS was threats to the Muslim world more than it was the threats to the West. And I think it's no less true for Hamas. And so showing some, and I think Paola is right to remind us that Hamas came to power in Gaza by throwing Palestinians off the roofs of buildings and taking over Gaza by force after Israel left. Right? That was the part of history, I think, that was just before all of that. Israel left Gaza. It could have become Singapore. It was possible. Those opportunities existed in 2005 and in 2006.
Yeah, it had a port, it had greenhouses.
But Hamas had no interest in that. I saw a meme the other day of Gaza has run out of everything except for rockets. That it has in abundance. And so the Palestinian people are not my enemy. And here I am on Indian television saying that clearly. We don't want to destroy the Palestinians. It would be wonderful to find a way to bring them into a cycle of dialogue and peace.
So, Ambassador,
but it had been tried before a number of times.
Why was it put on ice for 30 years? Why did the Oslo Accords not take off? Why is it that Mr. Netanyahu chose to keep Gaza, in a little box tied up with Hamas and ignore, many say, the Palestinian Authority? I mean, even if there were corruption charges.
I'm not sure that that's the right zoom
allegory
to take this. I'd also note that Israel doesn't have control of Gaza. Israel left Gaza.
Yes.
Handed off the keys and left.
Yeah.
And of course, Gaza has two borders, one with Israel and one with Egypt. And it's no surprise that Egypt says, we want nothing to do with refugees from Gaza. We want nothing to do with Hamas. And that it was agreed, and then Israel and the Americans determined that humanitarian aid is going to come through the Egyptian border, and I hope it does. But I hope it doesn't get to Hamas, but it will. I hope it gets to the people, but it won't. But two borders, two sides, one Jewish country, one Muslim country, right? Egypt and Israel on two sides. Both of them have the same point of view regarding Hamas. Both of them understand the dangers. All of us have lived in the region. It's not a question of, I think, Mr. Netanyahu's policy, which I'm not a fan of, but all of us in Israel, left, right, and center, I think the Muslim population in Israel understands. I think the Christian population in Israel understands that Hamas is coming for all of us. For all of us. And
It's also got
And
links
I'm
to the
happy to
Muslim
have a
Brotherhood.
conversation about the day after, or even about what what we did wrong even before. But I think that the focus today, and I think that what the world is paying attention to, is that the disaster that's fell on the Palestinian people's heads, just like the rocket that fell on the hospital, came from Hamas or the Islamic Jihad. And that I don't understand, why did we all stop being interested the moment that that was found to be likely that it wasn't us? Those Palestinian lives,
People are
they're
not interested.
Indian television, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Italian in television continues to cover the dead
The
and the
Baptist
wounded in that
hospital.
hospital. I'm guessing they're not. And I'm not attacking, I'm not criticizing. I'm
Yeah.
just saying as an observation that when Israel can be blamed, the New York Times has a banner headline, and so does every other newspaper in the world, and writes 500 people just because the Hamas Ministry of Health claimed it. We all now know that it's not even close to true. It's still a tragedy, but it's a tragedy of Palestinians causing the destruction of other Palestinians. And I think that that's the story here.
Yeah. Is there the sense that you get that that Iran is pulling the strings from behind the scenes? Because right now Hezbollah hasn't really done anything more than send off a couple of rockets on the northern border with Israel, the Syrian side, where Hezbollah is supposed to be one of the, I mean, in Lebanon as well, where the Hezbollah is supposed to have one of the strongest, best armed militia that in the region. And I mean, beyond making a comment, like Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, who called it a genocide in Gaza, do you feel that, that they could be waiting and watching? Or is Iran concerned about the two aircraft carriers that the US has sent into the Mediterranean? What is it that is, holding Iran back at the moment?
I don't know. I haven't chatted with Tehran this morning, but more seriously, of course, Iran is interested, and of course, Iran is the main supplier and supporter of Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah, which has been a disaster for Lebanon and the people of that country. And it hasn't just been a few rockets. There's been daily attempts to almost sucker us in to a two-front war. And Israel's trying its best. It's really trying hard. And I think that the Americans, and I think that you mentioned the presence of American forces in the Mediterranean, are meant to signal, I don't know, President Biden said the words, just don't.
Yes.
And we, from an Israeli perspective, we have enough on our hands, enough challenges, enough dilemmas, enough to worry about to the south. But if we don't have a choice, we'll do what we have to do, because we don't have a choice. We don't have any place to go. And we need to be able to go to music festivals. And we need grandparents to live with their families. And Palestinians need that too.
So what do you see the future of the the relationship that the Israeli governments have built with the other Arab leaders, now all shot to pieces? I mean, with the Abraham Accords that have been signed with UAE, with a whole host of countries like Bahrain and so on and so forth, and was about to actually sign off with Saudi Arabia. Do you feel that Israel has focused too much on the commercial rather than the strategic? Because, I mean, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and two different things at the same time. One, I hope, and I'm confident, that the Abraham Accords are not shot to pieces, and that I think that leaders in places like Abu Dhabi and in Bahrain understand and have a history with radicals and with the need and with terrorism, and the interest in building a relationship exists. we have a relationship with Egypt and with Jordan, and we made an agreement regarding a border with Lebanon so that people can mutually benefit just over a year ago. There are lots of possibilities when we live as neighbors. I don't think that that's over. I think that that's something perhaps Hamas wanted to be over, and they would like to show pictures of, again, use the word genocide. It's not, of course. It's an insult to the word and to our intelligence to just believe the propaganda that's coming out of Gaza. But and media has struggled with that this week. But I think that the values of most of us in my region are like the values of people in India or in Europe. And most of us want to live as neighbors and to find a way. And most of us understand that people who come on hang gliders and shoot and kill 250 people at a music festival aren't neighbors for any of us, and would kill Italians or Indians or Israelis. It's all the same. We're all the same to them.
I have, I get the sense that, this is the end of the, this any kind of siege of Gaza, any kind of ground offensive against Gaza is not sustainable for a long period. So, and is there a future to the Netanyahu's brand of politics? The sizable number of young Israelis also want to live in peace, not just the old, and can Israelis and Palestinians really live together? And shouldn't we find intermediaries who can talk to each other, not at each other, which is what is happening at the moment?
Neena,
do you see an Oslo Accord in the future?
I don't know. It's hard for me on a day where our 50 or 60 funerals are taking place in a little country in one day to see what's going to be tomorrow. Much less.
But still, you're a
peacenik.
You're a peacenik. I know you want a safe homeland for the Israelis and the Jewish people. So how do you go about achieving that? Without the war widening, you bring in Iran or Syria or the Houthis, or it's such a dangerous tipping point.
Well, again, it would be lovely if people could gather and talk peace. There have been lots of attempts over the years, and lots of blame to go around on all sides, including mine. But none of it, and it's interesting, there was lots and lots of political debate in Israel over the past year about democratic issues, and Israel was very divided.
It was.
And what you may have seen that of my writing was saying our division is being perceived as a weakness.
As weakness, yes, I read that.
Perhaps that's so. But that division, at least for now, it'll come back. But it's been put in the closet. For now, me, a retired diplomat, I'm back on reserve duty, as it were, talking to the Indian media. I had stopped, but all of us, and in fact, the leaders of the democratic protest movement have all focused on volunteerism and providing for the families of the people and the soldiers along the border. And
who can Israel approach?
Members of Israel's opposition joined into the government. And don't be fooled. We are not split this week. We will be again one day. We're Jews, we're argumentative people. But this week,
I thought we had the title, the argumentative Indian.
Well, this is probably why Indians and Israelis get along. But in all seriousness, right now, we're focused on making our neighborhood safe again. And the Palestinian people are suffering. It's true. But they need to, instead of looking at us, and it's always easy to blame the other. It's always to say, oh, weak us, we don't have any options. I believe the Palestinians have agency and have options other than violence, other than terrorism, other than horrific war crimes. And if the Palestinians would be able to look at themselves and take on responsibility, Why can't we hear President Abbas speak up in a different voice? Why aren't we hearing, just like there are Jews around the world who may disagree with Israel, or Israelis who may disagree, where are the Palestinians around the world saying, this isn't the values we stand for? This isn't Islam. This is horrific. And like we're seeing brave women in Iran protesting, why don't we see people protesting against Hamas? Because people are afraid, and maybe because other people a little bit think it's not so bad that Jews get killed. And that's horrific. And Israel's going to stand up and do what we need to do to protect our people and make it possible for people to think about living again in that part of the Western Negev of southern Israel, and that we can go on with our lives again. And it's hard to imagine going on with our lives again right now, but inshallah, time will come.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Your concluding remarks were very good. Thank you, everyone, for watching Global Express. Please click on the New Indian Express website and retweet. Thank you.